Hello everyone and welcome to another News Coolum video and another plug side chat. This time I'm at a DC fast charging plug, so I figured I'd steal a few minutes while I'm charging to talk about, I think, kind of an interesting uh, topic that was brought up by some Tesla people in reference to the Electrify America chargers. And I do actually think that it's something that's worth considering because, on one hand, I've been suggesting that Tesla just make the transition to CCS in North America, like what they're doing in Europe. Because really, I mean, even as fast as the supercharger network is growing in North America, the public charging infrastructure is growing faster. It just seems like it would make a lot more sense if Tesla would adopt the CCS standard in North America. And in fact, it's one of the major holdups that I have in considering whether to buy something like a Tesla Model 3. That being said, though, my expectation would be that Tesla would not only start converting over some of the superchargers, and it's really clean for them to do so because it's essentially every other stall, or what they're doing in Europe, they're actually just adding another CCS plug to one of the stalls. But it would be fairly easy for them to convert over. But on top of it, for me, it was always about Tesla dividing their business in terms of they have a car company and they have a power company and they have a public charging company. And the three of them can work together under the same leadership, under the same guidance, whatnot. But they need to be separate and distinct entities in that if the supercharger network was opened up as a public network, where say every other stall would support the CCS standard, and all you had to do was essentially pay for a membership or pay for the power or both, I think it would help everybody. And so I've been pretty strong on that sort of front for a while now. I've held that position for a while now. But the counterpoint was from a lot of the Tesla people, well, why doesn't Electrify America add the Tesla standard to their CCS network that they're building out? And it's a very valid consideration because right now, the way Electrify America is setting up their sites, they don't allow power splitting at the charger level. And even if they did, their site configurations only allow one charger to be occupied at a time. So even if they did enable power splitting, which the hardware they're using would allow for, there's actually no physical way to fit more than one car per stall at those Electrify America chargers. And so if they were to replace one of the CCS heads with a Tesla standard head, well, they really wouldn't be losing anything other than occasionally the CCS head might be broken, and for CCS equipped drivers, that charger would no longer be usable until they replaced it or fixed it. But on the other hand, if you look at whether to include a CHAdeMO standard or a Tesla standard in order to support the uptake of electric vehicles, well, there's a whole lot more justification to add the Tesla standard. In terms of the amount of vehicles sold in North America at this point, Tesla is eclipsing every other pure electric battery vehicle provider. And in so doing, they've created the single biggest market. Now, 3 months ago, you bring this up, and people would have said, well, what's the point? Tesla owners get free supercharging, they get free access to the superchargers, and the ones who don't pay this really subsidized, really low rate. If you saw what some of the early Tesla Model 3 owners were paying for their power, it was absurdly cheap, right? People were driving across the country for less than $100. And, that's a really low, really subsidized rate. Well, since then, Tesla has actually increased the cost of using the superchargers to the point where they're at least as expensive, and in many cases more expensive to use than the public charging infrastructure. So when you say that Electrify America right now is charging too much, well, compare their prices to the superchargers. They're actually charging less if you can actually charge at the 150 to 350 kilowatt rate. Now, I've also stated that based on what we know of the Model 3 mid-range, the battery doesn't look to be the limitation for the Model 3's charging rate. If it's able to charge at a full 2C rate, which looks like that's what's possible, Tesla owners, or at least Tesla Model 3 owners, would actually benefit from having access to 150 to 350 kilowatt chargers over the current superchargers that they have access to. Of course, the problem is Tesla would still need to come out with their Supercharger V3 plug and cable, because that's what the holdup is. But if they were able to license that, and they were able to figure out how to get the liquid cooling to allow for it to support, say, 500 amps of charging current, like the CCS standard can handle, well, if they could do that, then there actually would be a little bit more justification for Tesla and Electrify America to maybe say, hey, look, you have all of these chargers being built out, great coverage, great location, places where even there aren't superchargers right now. If you add our cables to your chargers, we'll have an instant audience, an instant customer base who will be paying to use your charging infrastructure. And then as a reciprocity, we'll start adding CCS2 cables to the supercharger sites, but not just exclusively leaving them for Tesla owners, but making them available to any EV owner who could then plug in, charge, and pay into the Tesla system. I would encourage Electrify America to consider that, but I would also say I wouldn't even consider moving forward unless you had something maybe even more significant than a handshake agreement from Tesla. I've seen a story making the rounds again about Tesla, opening up all of its patents, and they're all free and anyone can use them because they, want to promote electric vehicle adoption, and they want anybody who wants to build a Tesla to be able to build a Tesla. But we're still seeing them hold on to the one thing that I think is preventing electric vehicle adoption more than anything else, and that's access to a network like the Supercharger network. Like I said, you can say, oh, well, if you're not contributing, you shouldn't be using it. If there were $120 a year membership, kind of like what EVgo charges, and you were still paying for power, I would say you were contributing, right? It's sunk cost. The hardware's already built. I think there's a little bit of misdirection going on. It's one thing to offer up patents that nobody else is ever going to use, but it's another thing to actually walk the walk and start working hand in hand with the public charging providers to actually not just support Tesla customers, but also to support all EV owners. So I do think it's something that's worth considering. I think it's something that maybe Electrify America should look into, because right now you're building out a nationwide network of chargers, and they're just a handful of cars that are going to be able to use it. We have the 50,000 volt EVs that have been sold so far. We don't know how many Konas and Niros are going to be provided to the United States. So I think having a customer base of a few 100,000 long-range cars just to start with, I think, it's worth considering. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think that Tesla and Electrify America should probably work together? Do you think that would actually help EV adoption? Would you pay for a Tesla Supercharger subscription? If you were a Tesla owner, would you like to have the additional options of using a Electrify America charger when maybe it's sitting halfway between two superchargers that are 100 miles apart? Would you be willing to pay 15, 20, cents per kilowatt hour to charge at a Electrify America charger. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel, and thank you for watching.